at the park where they had planned to meet and began waiting for her. But as time passed, there was still no sign of Christine. Her friend waited a bit longer, then decided she tried calling Christine, but no one answered. She realized that her daughter wasn't there, even though it was clear she had home after school. Her backpack was in her room. Christine loved that bike and always took good care of it, so it was surprising that she would just outside like that. Christine's jacket was also hanging on a high hook in the hallway, a place she clearly couldn't reach on her own. But despite all of this, her mom wasn't initially worried. She thought Christine had just run out of play, like she had made times before, and decided to wait for her to come back. About an hour later, as it started to get dark outside, her mom began to worry. Even though Christine was independent, she always let her parents know where she was going. Her mom started calling the parents of all of Christine's friends, hoping she was one of them. But each time, she was told that no one had seen Christine since school. When her mom called Christine's best friend, the girl said they had planned to meet in the park, but Christine never showed up. Realizing that none of her friends had seen Christine, the mother and her son headed out to search the streets. Given the small size of their town, they quickly checked all the places Christine liked to spend time, but she was nowhere to be found. By around 7 p.m., with no sign of her and still no word, the mother decided it was time to call the police. For the local police department, cases like this weren't all that uncommon. Usually, they involved kids who either lost track of time while playing or ran off after a fight with a crime. In most of these situations, the kids were found quickly, without the need for a full investigation. This time, the police organized a search and asked locals for help. Dozens quickly responded and went out to look for. The police also found out that Christine had visited a small store located between her house and the park, where she was supposed to meet her friends. She bought some gum, but where she went after that remained a mystery. There were no surveillance cameras back then, so the officers couldn't piece together an exact timeline. They believed she had gone to the store just minutes after getting home from school. The search continued through the night, but they were unable to find Christine. The next day, even more people joined the search efforts, and the police began receiving various tips. However, none of them proved useful. Most reported of people seeing some girl on the street or in a passing car, but no one was sure it was Christine, and they also couldn't provide any additional details. In the following days, the police began to suspect they were dealing with an abduction. There was little chance because he could go unnoticed when every resident in their small town knew about her disappearance. Her mother was also certain that Christine would never run away from home. Despite this, the police still couldn't locate Christine. They searched her house, but due to their lack of experience, they did it quite unprofessionally. They looked through some of her belongings without dusting for fingerprints. Plus, they allowed neighbors and family friends to visit the house before conducting a proper examination, potentially compromising any evidence. It's worth noting that at the time of Christine's disappearance, her father was in jail. Just a few weeks earlier, it for a minor fraud, and on the day Christine went missing, her mother and brother had visited him after the dentist appointment. When it became clear that Christine was likely abducted, her father was released from jail to be with his family, and he immediately joined the search for his daughter. The search continued for several weeks, but they were unable to find Christine or any clues that could shed light on her disappearance. The search area expanded to cover the fields and forests surrounding the town, but still, nothing turned up. This went on for 3 months, until December 31st. While everyone else was getting ready to celebrate the new year, Christine's family had no reason to celebrate. They still held on to hope that she was alive, but that hope was fading. On that day, a man from the town of Sunderland, 35 miles from Queensville, went out to look for his runaway dog. Walking through the wooded area behind his house, he noticed what looked like a small pile of trash and went closer. To his horror, he discovered a human body and immediately returned home to call the police. When officers arrived at the scene, they quickly identified the deceased, even though the body was in an advanced state of decomposition. Lying next to it was a recorder with a piece of paper labeled Christine Jessup. The recorder had been given to Christine at school on the day she disappeared. Officers immediately suspected foul play. Part of her clothing, including her pants and underwear, was found next to the body, while her other clothes were still on her. The body was sent to medical examiners, and the Queensville police reclassified the case as a homicide. Christine had multiple stab wounds, which were determined to be the cause of death, along with numerous abrasions. Experts concluded that she had been assaulted.
Exactly.
Biological material. However,
Relación
since DNA
y
analysis
concentración.
wasn't available at the time, this
Movie
evidence
cloud.
couldn't be used to identify the perpetrator. Investigators believe that Christine was killed elsewhere and then transported to the location where her body was found. They considered it odd that the killer drove 35 miles to leave her body near another town, especially with so many fields and forests around Queensville. Detectives theorized that the killer might have had some connection to Sunderland and chose that spot because he was familiar with it. That the perpetrator lived in Queensville.
Hey, Stormy VR.
As all signs suggested, she might have willingly gone with him or gotten into his car. Investigators repeatedly asked Christine's parents if they had any suspects in mind, but her mother always said she couldn't think of
that was gonna
anyone
start
in
happening.
particular. The police interviewed nearly every
Daddy,
resident
running
in town,
low.
investigated several individuals with criminal histories, and followed up on various tips, but they couldn't connect any of them to the crime. This continued until
Not for this thing either.
2014.
Just for this
Detectives
one.
returned to speak with Christine's mother again. They asked her once more if she could think of anyone who seemed suspicious, and this time she remembered something odd. The Mornings family lived next door and were well respected in the town. The head of the family owned a small business and was known for being able to fix almost anything. The residents of Queensville often sought his help, and he was well regarded. He had 6 adult children who helped run the business. One of them, 25-year-old Guy Paul Morin, lived with his parents, and Christine's mother remembered a few strange things about him. Guy Paul hadn't participated in the search for Christine, even though almost the entire town had joined the efforts for weeks. And after Christine's body was found, he didn't attend her funeral, despite being the family's closest neighbor. She added that Guy Paul was quiet and reserved. He had a few friends and a girlfriend he kept to himself. He was also passionate about playing the clarinet. This detail caught the detective's attention, as Christine had a recorder with her at the time of the abduction. They speculated that Guy Paul might have used music to engage Christine in conversation and lure her away.
16.
Moreover, Christine would have known him, as he had
Versus
lived just a few yards from their home all her life. Detectives went to speak with him and asked how well he knew Christine. Guy Paul said they had hardly ever spoken, except for one time when her dog ran away, and he helped her catch it. When asked where he was on the day Christine disappeared, Guy Paul said he was at work, 30 miles away, until about 3:30 p.m. He then drove to the store, stopped at a gas station, and got home around 5 p.m. Finally, the detective asked what he thought about Christine. He replied that she was a typical sweet child, but then added an odd remark. But sometimes they grow up to be corrupt. This struck the police as very suspicious, so they began verifying his alibi. Detectives checked his work schedule and found that he finished his shift at exactly 3:32 p.m. That meant even if he had driven straight to Christine's house, he wouldn't have arrived before her mother got home. Further checks confirmed that he had indeed stopped at a grocery store and a gas station, which took half an hour. His family also confirmed that he arrived home around 5 p.m. and went to bed shortly because he was and found several fabric fibers in the trunk, which were sent to the lab. Experts soon came to the conclusion that these fibers matched the sweater Christine was wearing the day she disappeared. Several hairs found on Christine's body were also believed to belong to Morin. However, in those days, experts could only visually compare hair samples and suggest similarities or obvious differences, like color. Finally, the police consulted an FBI profiler who created a rough profile of the killer based on all available information. The profiler suggested that the suspect was a male from Queensville, aged 19 to 26, with a criminal record for crimes like arson or voyeurism. The profiler provided other characteristics. but detectives focused only on those that matched Morin. He had no criminal record or a bad reputation, so he fit less than half of the profile's criteria. But the police were already convinced Morin was the killer, and on April 22nd, they decided to arrest him. He denied any involvement in the crime and was placed in jail awaiting trial. Chris shocked to learn that their closest neighbor could commit such a crime. However, the detective's main problem was Christine's mother's statement about the exact time she returned home, 4:10 p.m. She was confident about this because she checked the clock as soon as she entered the kitchen. According to the investigators' calculations, Morin couldn't have reached their house from his workplace before 4:10 p.m. and would have needed at least another 15 to 20 minutes. So, they kept asking the woman if she was sure about the time or if she might be mistaken. They insisted that Paul was the killer, and only her testimony about the time prevented them from holding Morin accountable. Eventually, the woman assumed that she might have arrived a little later, and that was enough for the police. During the trial, the prosecution attempted to portray Morin as a strange loner whose behavior raised concerns among the other town residents. They also insisted that he had enough time to abduct Christine, as her mother arrived home later than she initially stated. Regarding Guy Paul's family members who confirmed his alibi, a psychologist brought in by the prosecution claimed they all